All right, everyone. I think it's time to get started. Thank you so much for joining. The purpose of today's session is to show you Neo. You've already seen it, we assume, but also to show you all the tools that are available to you in this period of transition. But most importantly, what we want to do with this session is to give you time to ask questions. So we have saved a lot of time at the end for questions, and we'll go through that. But before that, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Christine Rosenberg. I teach Quinyx. I also implement and project manage, and I've been with the company for about 5 years, and I am based in the Boston office. And I think we also have Carl with us. Morning, Carl. Or afternoon.
Yes, you do have me with you. So my name's Carl Geiger. I'm Chief Product Officer at Quinyx. I've been with Quinyx for 12 years. I head up the product management team, also the product design team and product documentation team. And I'm on this session today because even though I don't have the same deep knowledge as our product managers, I do have a pretty good knowledge of the product, and I like to help out in these sessions, answering questions that you might have. So if during the session you can think of any questions that you would like answered, please use the Q&A function in the bottom menu of the Zoom window. There's a Q&A button with 2 speech bubbles. Click there, post your question, and when we come to the question and answer stage at the end of the demo, we'll go through all of the questions and try to answer them as best we can.
Excellent. I have to beg to differ with you, though, Carl. I don't think I know anyone who knows the product as well as you do. So it's great to have you. So we want to talk about, this transition has happened. We are now in Neo. Everyone is using Neo. We do have a couple of settings, though, pardon me, that still have to be accessed in Classic. So we want to take the opportunity now after the transition to talk about those settings that still have to be changed in Classic, and which those are, and how to get those changed. So that's the plan. We also then want to show you the system. Again, hopefully you've already been using it for a while now, but we still want to go through the system and show you mainly the new functionalities that differ from Classic. To give you a little overview, we're also at the end, we're going to open up to Carl to talk a little bit about what is coming. What do we have planned in future sprints? What does the future look like? But again, our main goal is to open up for questions. And just like Carl said, the Q&A function in the Zoom meeting, feel free to cue away your questions as I talk or as we both talk, but we will actually save all the questions until the end. So this session is being recorded, and then we'll end the recording before we actually open up for answering questions, just so you're aware. So we hope that sounds good. Let me dive right into what I mentioned about what Classic settings are not yet available in Neo, and when the plan is to get them in there. So if you haven't seen our Help Docs feature, our online manual, this basically has everything you need to know about Quinyx. I'll show you a little bit more where to find it and the sort of information that you can find in there here in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you this particular article. It's called Settings Overview. So if you go into Help Docs, you can search for Settings Overview in the search option, and you should find this article. And settings that you can change in Neo are listed, and you can link to how to change those settings. But more importantly for us at the moment, has to do with what settings are not available in Neo. So here we can see a list of things that still have to be changed, edited in Classic. So adding salary types, adding new leave reason types, adding brand new time trackers, brand new overtime methods, global bank holidays. I don't need to read them off. I mean, you can see what they are. But these are the things that we will be working on in the next, I believe the plan is everything should be in place by summer. Maybe you want to help me here, Carl?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it says there Q2, but so during the summer, the last settings items should be added there, and we're doing them in priority order. So we know the data, we know which settings are most commonly updated by our customers, and we're delivering those first. So it says their salary types in 2021. That's what we're working on right now. In the last release, we added support for updating cost centers, and the release before that, it was projects. So yeah, we're delivering new settings capabilities with every release.
Perfect, thank you. So what are you to do since you cannot access Classic at the moment? Well, the plan is, or the process is, for you to contact our support team. If there's anything regarding these things that you need to change in the system, we can help you. You contact the Quinyx support team. Obviously, I would highly recommend keeping track of the release notes, because as these things come into Neo, you can change them yourselves. But if there's something that's not there yet, Quinyx support. And we understand that the Quinyx support team has been very, very busy with this Neo transition. So there are a little bit longer response times, but just so that you're aware, we have pulled a lot of resources into the support team. Everyone is helping them, and they are doing a great job. So they will get to you ASAP, just so that you're aware. So a great article, a little tip of what to look for in the coming sprints. So let me jump into the demo of Neo, and then talk about, again, sort of the maybe focusing more on the new functionalities, or the things that have changed from Classic. So web.quinyx.com, I'm assuming you've all been in here. When we get into Quinyx, we go, or Neo, Quinyx, I guess it's Quinyx now. We are taken to the dashboard with our upcoming events. We see our little staffing graphs. We see worked hours versus scheduled hours for day, week, or even a monthly view, depending on what I want to see. And then I have my big bold colors, the different things that I, as a scheduler, should take action on. So that's what I see at the dashboard. And as we get further into the iterations of Neo, this whole dashboard will be a little bit more customizable. You can actually add, if you have our forecast modules, you can add a widget for sales figures, for example. So it already is slightly customizable, but even more so in the future. Coming across the top here, we have our modules. In the schedule, I have the schedule option, where I look at I do my daily schedule management. I also have a base schedule view, and the base schedule is how I create my pattern of my schedule. How do my staff generally work in the system? I create a reusable base schedule, a template, if you will, and then I roll it out into the schedule. We had our old concept of fixed schedules in Classic, and then it was redesigned or re-envisioned to the base schedule functionality. We used to have one fixed schedule per person. Now we have one base schedule per unit. There are other reasons you may have several base schedules, but technically you'd only need one base schedule per unit. You put all of your employees in there, but other than that, the base schedules and the fixed schedules work exactly the same. You create it. Next step is to roll it out into the schedule. And lastly, you have to publish it. Once you're ready for the staff members to see it, it has to be published. So those 3 steps, create, rollout, create, rollout, and publish, are the same as they have always been in the system. We'll get back to that. Time, this is where your payroll personnel will come in and pull payroll. It's also useful for even for local managers or store managers or whatever your organization calls it, unit managers in our case, to go in and make sure that they have approved or tested all of the times that need to go for payroll. I'll show you, there's ways to do that in the schedule too. So there's really no necessity for there's no real reason a local manager would have to go into time, but they can to double check if all of the test work has been done if they want to. We have a people tab, very similar to what we've always had in Classic. No real new fields or differences there, apart from the whole new concept of roles, which we'll get to also. The Analytics tab is all of our reports. So our Excel spreadsheet reports in this list. And then we have a Forecast tab for those of you using our Forecast module. We have a Forecast tab to be able to see scheduled hours versus optimal hours versus productive hours, et cetera, et cetera. Coming all the way across the top, depending on my level of access into the system, I can look at this drop down and access different units, but I can actually access different districts, units, or sections within the organization. So, having to do with roles and access rights, which are completely revamped in Neo, I have much more capabilities or much more flexibility than I had in Classic. Like, I can now go into a district and see all of the schedules for the entire district, which was not possible in Classic. So depending on my level of access and who I am, is what I see in this drop down. If I am a local manager who manages 1 unit, that's all I will see in here. This is kind of a neat feature, somewhat new if you haven't seen this. If I click up here, again, now I have the highest level of access in here. I can do everything in my own test environment, my own company. If I come in here, I'm opening a global people search. So let's say you're a payroll person and you have a large organization and you're looking for, excuse me, you're looking for a particular individual and you have no idea which unit they belong to. If you use this feature, you can come in here and search for a person throughout the entire organization. And you can search by badge number, you can search by email address, by name. So a sort of a global search feature, which is very, very useful if you haven't seen that yet. My Qmails, no different again from Classic. This is my little inbox. Most of the system notifications are automated. Your shift has changed, your leave application has been approved, things like that. But obviously you have the ability to manually generate a message. You can choose all recipients or specific ones. You can add attachments, send read receipts, and mark something as important. Some revamping of the notification structure is coming in the next couple of releases. So again, keep track of the release notes. Some really good information in those. And if you don't get them to you as an email, I'll show you where to find them. But that's our Qmails. And then coming all the way across the top on the right-hand side, I have a drop down. And again, depending on my level of access is what I'm going to see in this drop down. So account settings, this is all of you super users, all of you who have full system access. You can access the account settings and you can do configuration changes. I will get back to that. Under group settings, if you are a local manager, a unit manager, and you have access to group settings, you can look at your organizational tree sort of thing and see which employees you have and what roles they have, which again, I'll get back to the roles. You also, as a local manager, would have the ability to mass authorize devices. So for those of you who have staff members punching in and out on the mobile app, you know that you have to authorize a device in order for the staff members to be able to punch. And this allows you to do it en masse. You could do it under the people tab still, like we have done historically, but now you have this sort of mass turn on feature. And then for shift types, if you have managers creating their own local shift types, they could do that in their unit under group settings. And in that case, the shift type will be local, meaning it's only visible on that particular unit. Global shift types would be set under account settings. I'll get back to that again. I'm very sorry, I have a frog in my throat today. The next thing is pause notifications. So pause notifications, if you, any changes you make to the schedule in a published period generate Q mails, right? So your shift has changed, your shift has been deleted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you know that you're going to make a lot of changes in the schedule during one period of time and you do not want these notifications to go out, you don't want to inundate your staff members with a bunch of Q mails, which pings them on their phones, you can pause notifications while you're doing the changes. So I can choose to pause the notifications, do all my changes to the schedule, and nobody gets any notifications. Keep in mind, though, that it is the change to the schedule that actually triggers the push notification or the notification. So if you have turned the notifications off and made a bunch of changes, you then have to somehow inform your staff members of the schedule changes. So you could just go in and send a manual Q mail to everyone to go in and look at their schedules. So that's what pause notification means. You can change your language in Quinyx. The help feature here, this is where I was saying you can, or I said I would show you how you can quickly get to our Quinyx help docs. So this is all of the information you could ever need about Quinyx, and surely a lot of information you never need or would care about, but focusing on all of the Neo articles, right? So you can come into Neo and you can look for certain things, you can search for specific articles. And if I go back, click on Quinyx, I get back to the landing page. We have a lot of information about making the move to Neo. We've been doing these trainings for the past year, I want to say. So you can see historical recorded trainings. You can share that with anybody who wants to see. And then we have, obviously, you've hopefully already seen how we've posted any live trainings that we're doing like we are today. So a lot of great information there also. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight in here is obviously the news and release notes. So if you are not on the mailing list for release notes, in Neo, there are bi-weekly releases. So every other week, there's new functionality added to the system. So when you come in here, you can read up all about what's coming in the next release or the latest release. So just that you're aware, you can find all of that information in our help docs. So I can access, again, the help docs through the help. I can also access it through this little lighthouse here, sort of a little pop-up screen, and you can search and find articles, but it's the exact same information. Send us feedback. So here is where we are asking for your help. We want to make this system amazing. We think it is already, but we want to make it even more amazing. And that's what you can help us do by sending us feedback. If you have ideas on how to improve Quinyx, things that we can do to make your life easier or add to the system, you can send us suggestions and ideas and feedback. And we encourage you to do so. This feedback goes directly to our product team, Carl and all of his colleagues. And even though they may not always have time to respond, they definitely read everything, categorize it, look at everything, and consider everything, just so that you're aware. Also important that this is not a support feature. So if you think you have found a bug or if you're having issues in the system, you still have to contact your own Quinyx super user, or if you are the super user, you contact our support team in Stockholm. I don't know if you have, Carl, you want to add anything to what I'm saying here?
No, just that this feedback is super important for the product team. One of the major contributing factors to our prioritization is how often we receive feedback about a given function or functional area. So the more people that send in feedback or improvement suggestions regarding a specific area, the greater the chance that we will prioritize that development. So please take the time to send us feedback and improvement suggestions because it will have an impact on the product, guaranteed. So please exercise your possibility to influence the product.
Yes, and also we have a little NPS feature here. Would you recommend us? Obviously, we'd like it if you gave us a high score there. You obviously put whatever you want here, but just to talk a little bit about the work that has been done. There has been a lot of work done around performance. Neo is a lot faster than Classic has been, and hopefully that's something that you notice. It's something that's widely obvious to myself, who's been working in the system for 5 years. Neo is very much faster. Another main difference, it's that Neo is mobile, right? I can use Neo on my phone. I can use Neo on a tablet, things that were not possible with Classic in the past. And then we have these new concept of base schedules and also the new flexibility around roles and access rights. So we have improved a lot of things, and we will continue to do so, of course. So also the staff portal, those of you who have staff members who might not have a smartphone or don't want to use Quinyx on the mobile app for whatever reason, we do have a staff portal. I can see my schedule. I can send leave applications. I can attest my own time. So quite basic staff portal, but there is one. And if I have an employee role and I do not have a manager role, if I log into web.quinyx.com, I'm taken straight to the employee portal. So remember back in Classic, we had one login for the staff portal and a different login for the admin portal as a manager, but now they're the one and the same. And then it's depending on my role is where I end up. So that's how I, as a manager, if I'm scheduled in the system, I could switch the staff portal to look at my own stuff. So that's what's happening under this drop down here. Now, as a super user, as what we call an account manager, somebody who has the highest level of access in the system, I would have access to account settings. So let me go through the account settings a little bit. So a lot of information here. This is where we configure Quinyx again, and we'll be adding more information and more options in here as we get all of the settings over to Neo. Looking at the organization at the very top, this is my org tree. This is what how my organization is built in Quinyx. We have the domain level. So if I look in here, anybody on this very top level has access to all of the districts, units, and sections below it. And that person or those people would be inherited downwards, inherited to everything below it. So if you see an inherited member in the system, that's what that means, that they are on a higher level. If I go into Christine's HQ, for example, I can see a list of my employees and I can see everyone's role. So we have this new concept of roles and access rights. And in here, in the organization tree, I can go in and say, okay, I want Aaron to have a higher role. So let's say that I'm going on vacation and Aaron is going to take over my scheduling duties while I'm gone. I can add a role. I can say that he's going to be a local manager until I get back on the 28th. So you can set an end date on a role as well, which is a great benefit or new added feature from Classic to Neo. So that's a possibility. You can administer or edit your roles from the organization tree. And this is something that we have recommended, and hopefully you've already done this, to go through and make sure that everybody has the correct role before the transition. And I'm sure if the people didn't, you would have heard it soon enough, but to make sure that everybody has the correct role. And you can do that in here. Then actually the setting up of the roles. So again, the whole role concept is new in Neo. We have different levels and different roles. So at the very top, we have an account owner / manager role. Again, these people should only have access to account settings. They can go in and do configuration changes, basically. So at the very top level, we have the account owners managers, then we have super users. And the only real difference there is that, by default, the super users wouldn't have access to the account settings or to change them anyway. But, you guys build your own roles. You decide what everyone can do. District manager level, you can rename it if maybe you call them regions instead of districts, or maybe whatever the case may be, you can create and edit your own roles. The next level would be a local manager, right? A store manager, somebody who's a scheduler in a unit. So here I have an example of I have two roles on the same level. One is a local manager and one is an assistant manager. And why would I need that? Well, looking at edit roles, this is where I tell the system what someone who has that role can do, right? So here, maybe I have a local manager who should be able to do everything in the system, but an assistant manager should also be able to do everything, but maybe approve times or add staff members or whatever the case may be. But looking at the permissions, this is how I can change the role name. Maybe you don't call it a local manager, maybe you call it a store manager. Feel free to go in and change that to whatever you want. And then we have the permissions, right? What can somebody with the role do? So we have a no access option. We have a read access. I can just view something, but not edit. And then I have a write access. I can access and edit. So all of these options, you pick and choose what someone with that particular role should be able to do. And we have a section manager, and then finally the employee role, which doesn't have any permissions. So this is something to look over. Hopefully you already have, but that's how and where we edit our roles. Looking at group management, this is where I can, if I click on the domain level, the very top level, I can add a district. If I click on a district, I can add units underneath the district. If I click on a unit, I can add sections underneath a unit. Also in a unit level, I have all sorts of settings that can be enabled or changed, or generally all this would already be set up for you, but any changes you need to make on a unit level can be done here. And there's advanced settings, and all of this stuff is no different than anything that we've had in Classic before. But just so that you're aware of the sort of stuff that you can change in here. So that's group management. That's how you maintain and configure your organization, your structure. We also have the mobile and staff portal permissions. So this was something that we did before the end of the year. So now mobile access rights are in Neo. If I click into one of my staff categories, in this case, I pick and choose what should be able to be done in the mobile app and the staff portal. So when we did the switch from Classic mobile access rights to Neo mobile access rights, all of your settings came over the way they already were. So there's actually no need to change anything in here, business as usual. However, if you have any settings that you need to change regarding mobile access rights, you do it in here. And then lastly, in this option here under integrations, so under the role management, again, sorry, I can define who has access to and can edit the people tab and agreements, for example, but it's not very granular, right? I can't say that my local manager should be able to not edit any field except the email address, for example. So there is an option here under integrations, and mostly for those customers who do have employee and agreement integrations, you want to be able to lock the fields because the information is coming from the integration and should not be physically manually changed in Quinyx. So here you can go in and lock fields, specific fields, if needed. And it's called integrations, but you don't need to have an integration for this to work, right? You can still lock fields for editing, specific fields in the employee details as well as the agreement details. So that's what this means. Next, we have the templates. So all of the agreement templates are in Neo, and you can add new ones, you can edit existing ones, and again, nothing in here is new from what we've always had in Classic. You set the monthly or hourly salary, the salary types, the leave types, the time trackers, all of this is set up in an agreement template. I can go to the different sort of tabs by clicking across the top. So no changes there, just the look of it. Shift types, again, if I am under account settings and I create a shift type, it's going to be a global shift type visible to the entire organization. If you have somebody creating a shift type under group settings for a specific unit, then that's considered a local shift type. Only that unit will see it and be able to use it. So in this case, you have the ability to create global shift types. And we can see here that they're marked as shared, whereas a local shift type would not be. The skills functionality, if you're using skills in the system, you can add your skills in here, and then you can add them to your staff members, and you can filter by skills, or you can even require a skill on a shift type to be able to schedule somebody on that shift. We have the navigation bar if you want to brand your Quinyx application, if you want a different color, if you want to add your company logo on the top left-hand side, that's what the navigation bar or appearance option allows you to do. Some of us are working with tags in the system. Those of you who are, you can edit your tags in here or add tags. Cost centers, we mentioned in here that cost centers will come, and now they have in this latest release. Now, if you need to add or edit cost centers, that can be done under account settings. I'm sorry, these are in Swedish, but cost centers. Statistics, this has to do with, mainly has to do with our forecast module. If you use our forecast module to optimize your schedules, there's some configuration that needs to be done. However, just to show you, under variable settings, you don't necessarily have to have the forecast options enabled to still see certain things. So I just want to show this so that you can turn off variables. If there's things that you see, for example, when we get to the schedule, you see in statistics, if there are things that you don't want to see, this is where you can come in and turn it off. So just to mention that, I can, how do I do it? So I click on it and then I can turn off it so it's not visible anymore. And then also a brand new feature or a brand new settings sort of feature that's from this latest release is our audit logs. So a first version of the audit logs that we have in Classic have just been added to the system in this latest release, but more functionality and sort of more search options will come in the next in the near future. So that's all what's going on under the account settings. So quite a lot if you are a super user, but nothing, you know, no different functionality than what we have in Classic, except our roles and access rights. If I move on and then talk a little bit about our people, the people tab. So list of our employees, same as always in Classic. I can search for a person. I can look for inactive people or anybody with an expired agreement. And, you know, there's only so many I see on a page. I can go through the pages to look for another user if I need to. Adding a new employee, I click on add and we have red asterisks, which is hard to say, asterisks. For required fields, you put in anything that's required, and then you write on the first initial page, you choose the agreement template that this person should fall under, and as well as the employee rate. So in my personal opinion, it's a huge benefit or a huge positive change from Classic, where before I had to go in and create a staff card, I had to save it, I had to go to a different tab, open it up, and remember to assign an agreement template to a person. There has to always be an agreement template, right? Because we need those rules and overtime rules and salary codes and everything to attach to any punches. But it was so much easier to forget before, and now it's right there on the initial page when you set up a brand new user. And then with the contact details, addresses, phone numbers, all that sort of stuff. Sharing across units, that is now something that we recommend doing over here instead. So under employee, this is my roles. So I showed you over here under account settings where I can, and group settings, where I can administer and edit my roles for my staff. That can also be done under people. So this is the exact same thing. If I come in here under employee, I can add a role for Aaron, or I can share him to other units if you have shared employees. So Aaron belongs to HQ, but he's also shared to store 2 and 3 in this case. So this is where you can administer and maintain the roles. If I need to make any changes, if I click into an existing person, I have all the people details on the left. If I need to change an email address or an address or whatever the case may be. Or if I go to the right-hand side, I can change the agreements. And again, none of this functionality is different than what we've had in Classic before. None of the fields or anything like that. If you happen to have our digital signing functionality, this is the same again as we had in Classic. You just click on the star to initiate the signing process, to go through the flow and get an agreement contract signed via the system. That is the People tab. Moving right along then to our base schedules. Again, I mentioned that you create, you roll it out, you publish it. So those are the 3 steps. We create one. I can show you an existing one here. You go through and you add all of your shifts the way you want them in your base, the reoccurring pattern of your schedule. I can make sure that I've scheduled everybody enough via the base schedule hours versus my nominal or contracted hours. So black bold means somebody's scheduled too much according to the contract, and then N in this case is not enough. So I go through and I build everything, and under the display statistics, for example, I can see how many hours in total that I have scheduled. I can view things in different ways, depending on what I want to look like and what I want to look at, and what information that we have in the system. So that's there. And then also we can filter, right? So if I want to make sure that I have scheduled enough morning shifts, I can filter for a specific shift type. But also, if I, let's say if I hired a new person and I create a new row for them in my base schedule, and I only want to roll out their row because everybody else is already rolled out. If I filter for a specific person, person that maybe has some shifts, Adam. And then I roll out, it's only going to roll out Adam's row. Whereas if I don't filter, it's going to roll out everyone. So I create my base schedule. When I'm happy, I roll it out in the calendar, right? And I pick and choose what dates I want to roll them out from. I roll it out. And when I have rolled it out, I'm going to get my warnings. Am I breaking any rules of the agreements? So any warnings that show up appear with a red exclamation mark. And if I click in, I can see what the warnings are. And I can say, I want to roll it out anyway. I don't want to roll it out. I don't want to roll these shifts out and break the rules of the agreements. Or I do want to roll these shifts out, but just not attached to the person because I don't want to break their rules, but I do need this shift in the calendar. So I can choose one option for all of my warnings. I can choose an option for all of Sarah's warnings up here, or I can do it shift by shift. And then I click rollout to handle all my warnings. And then after everything is ready to go, I have a check mark for that everything is rolled out. And going to the schedule view, the daily view of the schedule. If I click in here, I have, I go into today's date. But if I look at the weekly view, which I personally like better. I mean, you do whatever you want, obviously, but this is how I like to work. I look at the weekly view and I can see my schedule for the week. I just want to finish the process of a base schedule. On the far right-hand side, publish, right? So when you have rolled it out, when you're ready for your staff members to see their schedules in the mobile app and in the staff portal, you have to publish it. And remember that any changes to the schedule in a published period will generate QMail notifications, which you can pause, as I showed you. Anyway, so looking at my weekly view here, I see shifts and I see associated punches, shift and a punch. I have my different shift types. I've added colors to my shift types to make it easy for me to understand which shift type is which. I see leaves, approved leaves in black in the system. I see leave applications in this gray background. So Marie has requested to have Friday and Saturday off. Something I don't have an example for in here are notices of interest. If you work with notices of interest in the system, you would see the same thing like this leave request, but it would be with a green background. So somebody's saying that I'm available to work. So again, here I can see scheduled versus nominal hours. So scheduled versus contracted. And this is Elena is scheduled for 4 more hours than she should be. Maybe leading to overtime payments and things like that. I can come in here and click on the employee metrics to choose or to sort of see what I want to look at, right? Because now I'm looking at a week. I have a selected period, that's my week. But then I also might have a different schedule period. You may have a schedule period of a month or a couple of weeks. That's coming from the agreement template. So that allows you to see scheduled versus contracted or nominal, as we call them, in the period. So that's something that I can get here. If I want to change what I'm seeing here, I also have a little option here to say that I don't want to see the schedule period. I want to actually see the selected period. I want to look at how much somebody is scheduled for this week that I'm looking at. So Adam and Aaron and Elena, they're scheduled too much, for example. So that allows me to do that. Looking across the top of the screen, I can add shifts, absences, and punches. I can also go directly to a cell and click on add shift to add a punch. Talking too much and too fast. To add a shift, I can do that here. Under the next section here, we have the date pickers. I can look at a day, I can look at the week, I can look at a month, or if maybe I want to look at a 2-week period, I can use this custom option. Keep going across the top. Under the display, I have my statistics. So my statistics, this is really good information. It lets me look at scheduled versus worked hours, for example, to make sure that, just to look at time. If you have salary costs in the system, you could see that information. And also, if you are using our forecast modules, you can see the optimal headcount. So you can compare how much you have scheduled versus what the forecast says, or the forecast has calculated is your optimal schedule. So you pick and choose what you want to see using the pen. And when you have you see now, that it's grayed out. That means I have made other choices with the pen. I have to refresh to get the data back in there. So I can view the data as a sort of Excel spreadsheet sort of view with the totals for the week and then down per day. And if I click into a day, I can see per hour. I can see the information as graphs if I am a graph sort of person. Or I can see the information as sums per week. So you can, again, pick and choose what the information you want to see here. And also with the pen then, which figures. So that is the statistics. Then next to it, we have the filter option. And the filter option is, very important in this case, because when I come in here into the schedule, I see everything. My test unit has a rather small sort of group of employees. You might have tons of employees and you have to scroll and whatever the case may be. This can get large, right? So the filter option allows you to filter for specifically what you want to see. And there's a lot of options. So basically whatever it is you want to filter on, you can, but you can also save your filters. So depending on what you're working on, right? So maybe I want a filter for when I'm doing my test work. I want to see any unattested punches or anything that has warnings. Maybe I want to see my leave applications and my leaves. I can have a holiday sort of planner here. So the filter option is very useful. However, everybody has to create their own filters at this point. You know, in the future, we're looking into maybe having global sort of suggested filters, but at the moment, everyone has to create their own. And again, I can save them, but when I'm done, when I want to go back to the full view, I just clear my filter and I'm taking back to the full view. Couple more things I want to mention before I hand over to Carl to talk about the future. Leave. So leave, as I mentioned, in black in the system. We also have leave applications in the grayed out. And I'm sorry, I should backtrack a little bit. So I looked at the filter, but also I want to mention this shift notification center, which has to do with leaves as well. But if I click on that, remember the dashboard where I had all this information of stuff that I need to do as a scheduler. In the shift notification center, here is where I can go in and do it. Shift and assignment requests. People want to get out of their shifts. If you use that functionality. Leave applications, I can see them all in here. I can handle them from here. Notices of interest, any unassigned shifts that I need to assign to somebody. It's all under the notifications center. But doing it, if you know, back to leave applications that I can handle from here, I can also handle them directly in the view. So a grayed out view, the leave, Marie has sent a leave application. I can click on it. And I can immediately see time tracker information. If you have that in the system, I can ensure that she has enough vacation time to take before I approve it, for example. The other question is, what's going to happen to the underlying shift while Marie is gone? So there's a default setting for my vacation leave type to unassign. I'm going to try to replace Marie. But in this case, you know what? It's a slow period. I don't need to replace her. I'll just delete the shifts and approve it. So that's how we handle a leave application. If you need to manually add a leave, you can click into a shift. So punch missing. Marie never showed up to work on Monday. On Tuesday, she was actually sick. So I can click into the shift. I can go to more options and I can add an absence. More options, scroll all the way down and add an absence. I have to choose the absence type. She was sick. And then same thing, what happens to the underlying shift? Well, this was on Tuesday and we weren't able to get anyone else in, so we'll just delete the underlying shift. And you save it and you're done. So leave applications and leaves quite straightforward in the system. We also have then the attest functionality. So looking at each shift, we have an associated punch and I can attest it by just clicking on it. This functionality is exactly the same as we've always had in Classic. Any punch that has a warning has a red frame around it. So I can click in to see what the warning is and do whatever I need to do. Or I can just approve it if that's fine or if that's okay. But if I I can, like I just showed you, I can click into the punch, but I also have the time card right here. So I click on this blue date, I'm taken into the time card. So I can see here, I see my shift, I see my associated punch, and I can edit and do things with the shift and the punch in this view. I can also attest it in this view. I see a summary of the hours. I see my salary types that are being generated, and I can also see time trackers and potentially, you know, depending on my access, add time tracker transactions. If, for example, you don't have time trackers or there's things that you don't want to see in the time card, you can come in here and you can get rid of things. You can adjust the time card view to whatever you want. And then we can toggle between time cards. So that's how I access my time card. I can also go in here and go to the time card if I want to, these three little dots. But attesting, again, the checkbox has to be checked. I could check each one. I could check everything for Monday for the column, or I could check everything for the row by using a test all this way. Or on the far right-hand side, I could attest everything that I'm looking at. So that's the test view. And just lastly, to talk a little bit about the time view. This is for payroll, right? To pull payroll transactions, and you pick your date. You pick what units or districts or what you want which information you want to pull. And then you have to pick a payroll file. So hopefully, or generally, you only have one type of payroll file, but some of you may have different ones. You pick the one you want to pull for, and then I apply, and it's going to pull all of the transactions that can be, it's going to pull all of the payroll transactions. And I can see none of this is approved. Nothing is ready for transfer. So my managers haven't really done their work, or I didn't do my work, but nothing is ready for transfer to payroll in this case. But just as a tip here, you also have the option as a payroll person to look at the unit view. So for that period that I selected, I can see that all but one unit is ready for payroll. And once I have, and ignore that it's not ready, let's pretend that it is ready. I pick what I want to have sent in the payroll file. I can create my payroll file. I can revert the file if I need to. I can get a preliminary file if I just want to see what the payroll file looks like without actually running it. I can get my salary details report, my very good Excel spreadsheet report of what the payroll file looks like. And now I have talked about 300 miles a minute. So with that, let me hand over to Carl for a little bit to talk about the future of what we're doing with Quinyx, and then we'll open up for questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm going to try to keep it short and concise here, because I usually ramble on way too long, and I want to give as much time as possible to answer questions. Because as I answer questions, there tends to be new questions that pop up. So we need to give enough time for that. So I'm just going to talk about, first of all, what we're going to focus on during this year, development-wise, and then what the long-term vision for the product is. And I think most of you probably have a pretty good idea of the long-term vision, because you probably had a close look at that before you even invested in Quinyx. But let's start with the short term. This year is going to focus a lot on executing on all of the feedback that we've received in Neo during the past 18 months, since customers started transitioning in greater numbers to Neo. We've received lots and lots of feedback, and we spent some time last year implementing a lot of that feedback, but we have a pretty big list of items to deliver during this year. So on a high level, we're talking about improvements to base schedules, to the general scheduling experience, to filtering and the user friendliness around the filtering. We are talking about things like being able to see on a more granular level the details around shift bookings and shift swaps and things like that. Obviously, we're also going to keep working with the configuration items that are not yet available in Neo to make sure that they're available. And we're going to be adding some other features that we have down prioritized because they weren't widely used in Classic, like, for example, news. So that we're going to build in Neo. So that's going to be the focus for this year. It's really about taking everything that we've already delivered in Neo to the next level and making it a bit better, adding that wow factor. What we've added now is, it's a great foundation, but as you're probably all aware, there's some tweaking to do and to really make everything fully, really, to add the wow factor, as I said. So that's the focus for this year. I usually go into a lot more detail, but I won't this time. Instead, just keep an eye out on our release notes, because we are releasing new features. All of these bells and whistles that I'm talking about, we are releasing them at a record pace. So please follow our release notes, because there are so many features there that are added with every release, and a lot of them will probably go unnoticed by most, because they are configuration based. You need to activate them in order to use them. But I would say, the vast majority of features we release are of use to everyone. So it really makes sense to follow our release notes to see, yeah, this feature is great, I want to activate that, because that may solve maybe some of the limitations that you're currently experiencing with Neo. So please follow release notes. Is my message there. So what about long term? Well, one of the things that we are working on this year really ties into our long-term vision. And the long-term vision is, of course, that when it comes to managers, and I'm speaking about managers in particular now, we want them to spend as little time as possible in Quinyx, to be honest. We want them to be able to focus on their core business first and foremost. And Quinyx should just be one of the tools for them to be able to do so. We don't want them to be sitting behind a computer constantly working in Quinyx. And so how do we reach this vision? Well, it's first and primarily it's through automation. So we want a lot of the processes around workforce management to be automated. And I'm talking specifically, when it comes to the short term at least, about forecasting demand, staffing demand. It's about automating this, automatically creating a schedule based on that demand, and then automatically assigning those shifts to employees. So these are three parts of the automation process, and we are building the next generation. So we already have features for this, and we've had these features in Classic for over 10 years, but right now we're investing heavily in building them from scratch and making them a lot more powerful. And you might be thinking, some of you might be thinking, that sounds great, I want to start using that straight away, and I think that's great news. Some others might be thinking, yeah, but my organization is so far away from being able to use tools like that because we are scheduling in this special way, and we do this and we do that. And I absolutely understand what you're thinking, but the idea behind this functionality is, of course, that the system should understand your way of working, should understand your patterns, and should understand the inputs that your business requires to drive demand. So no, actually, you should be able to use these tools. Everyone should be able to use these tools. That's the goal. So that gives you a bit of an idea of not only what we'll be focusing very heavily on this year, but the direction that Quinyx is taking long term. It's a lot about automation and not being forced to do recurring actions all the time, sitting behind a computer. That's not what Quinyx is about long term. So I hope that gives you an idea of where we're going. And if you have any questions about what I've just explained, then please add those questions to the Q&A function. And I will now move over to starting to answer the questions that have come in.
Can I just say a few more things, Carl, before we do that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to sort of lastly, again, highlight the help docs. Like Carl was mentioning release notes, but also we have everything else in there too. I just want to show you one thing that just in case you haven't seen it. we have in the system, we have video tutorials. So we record these sessions that we do for you. But if you don't feel like sitting and listening to a recording for an hour, we have these video tutorials, which are for different topics, 2 to 3 minutes long. So this is something that has been very appreciated by our customers. I don't have to sit and listen to something for an hour, and I don't have to read through tons of material, but instead I can look at a 2 or 3 minute video. So for example, you know, the details of transfer to payroll or rolling out a base schedule, there's different videos here. So I highly recommend, you know, looking at these, but also sharing them with your colleagues. And we will attempt to keep these as updated as possible, as much as we can. So just another little tip for you. So with that, we will open up for questions, and if for whatever reason you don't want to stick around for that, thank you so much for coming. I will end the recording and we'll open up.